Hey everybody, Derek here to bring you another video for The Walking Dead Season 6. And what this video is going to be doing is reviewing the most recent episode of The Walking Dead, which is not Untie. I thought it was a phenomenal episode, absolutely great. Had a lot of the elements that you really want to see in a Walking Dead episode. Some action, some shocking moments, some interaction with the characters, and something new and developing happening on the show. I think that it had all of those elements. It was amazing, and I think it was one of the best episodes of the season so far. So I'm going to give you my thoughts on it. If you are not caught up with The Walking Dead and you do not want to be spoiled, then exit the video now and come back later, because otherwise you will be spoiled. Okay. So the episode mostly centers around the group going to the Hilltop community, which is where Jesus is from. Early in the episode, the group ends up meeting with Jesus, and Jesus tells them about where he's from. He states that he's not alone. He's from a community called the Hilltop. They have a very big food supply. They don't have a lot of ammunition, though. And Jesus thinks that the communities could really benefit from each other. That one can really supply one type of supplies, and the other could supply something else. The Hilltop has food. Alexandria has more weapons and some medicine. And Jesus hopes to be able to set something up with them. Of course, Rick and the group are a little skeptical. They've run into a lot of dangerous people before. They just don't know who these people are. They don't know if Jesus is telling the truth. So they're willing to go, but of course they have a lot of hesitation. It really does remind you when the group was going to Alexandria. A little bit less, violent means in the process, but they definitely exercised caution while they were doing this. And we had Rick, Daryl, Glenn and Maggie, and Abraham all go along on the journey to Alexandria along with Jesus. Carl actually, and Michonne goes too, my apologies, I almost forgot her. And Carl actually decides to stay behind. He was offered a chance to go by Rick, but Carl says, no, I'm going to stay back and watch over the community. He felt like he wouldn't necessarily make a good impression on the community, but he definitely, I think, made a very mature decision in the sense that Carl generally has at times wanted to do something and people told him not to, and sometimes it hasn't always gone as well, but we've really seen Carl start to mature a lot. And when Rick tells Carl about Michonne, because I guess that was the first time that anything physical like that had happened between Rick and Michonne, Carl understood. He didn't really have a problem with it. So it was very nice to see those two interact before they left. And they're on their way, and they run into a car accident. And Jesus says that this is some people from his community. So Rick and the group, they decide to help, but they're again skeptical. They don't know if they're going into a trap, so they tell Maggie to stay outside, watch Jesus, and if anything bad happens, to shoot him. They go inside, and they end up saving 4 of the Hilltop members from walkers that were inside. And one of them turns out to be a doctor, Dr. Harlan, who is a comic book character as well from the Hilltop. And as they're on their way back to the community, Harlan finds out that Maggie is pregnant, and hey, lo and behold, Harlan does have some specialties with obstetrics, I think it's called. So he would be able to help Maggie out, and offers to give them a checkup since they saved, Harlan and the rest of his people. When they get to the walls of the Hilltop, we see a little bit of a conflict. We do see that the Hilltop does have some safety mechanisms as well, and they are just as cautious about people as Rick's group are. They are on the walls. They only have spears because they don't have weapons, just like how it was portrayed in the comics. And We meet Cal and Eduardo, who were both on the wall. They're also comic book characters. And there's a little bit of a, standoff. Do we let these people in? Don't we? They wanted Rick's group to surrender the weapons, but Jesus is able to broker something between them, that Rick's group can keep their weapons, but that they need to trust them. Which is definitely asking for quite a bit, but they decide to go with it. It was a very nice scene. Jesus saying, "Look, we trust you, trust us," and that was very powerful. And I think that it really helped. As well as just all of the other actions leading up to this moment. I think that the group is slowly starting to build their trust with Jesus, and they really see that he is a very stand-up guy, as well as somebody who can really look at the big picture and kind of separate everything and take the appropriate course of action, which I'll explain later in the episode. But he really does stick up for Rick and the group and vouches for them. So it definitely helps build the trust. When we go inside, it's, a decent sized area. I actually thought it would be bigger, and maybe in the comic books it might be bigger, but it actually is fairly small. You see the mobile homes, you see a small area where they're farming, and then you see what I think was called Bennington Mansion, something like that, which was a museum. And that's where the group all lives, in the mobile homes and in the mansion. And they go up to the museum part of it, and they meet Gregory, played by Xander Berkeley. I have to say, what a wonderful performance by Xander Berkeley. If there's, how you look at a character and you kind of want somebody that you want to cast somebody who's going to portray that role well. I think this is one of the best casting calls that they've ever done on the show. He hit that spot on. That's exactly how I thought Gregory was when I read about him in the comics, and it was just very well portrayed. And I really loved the portrayal and the introduction of Gregory. For those of you who don't know who Gregory is, he is the leader of the Hilltop community. Of course, leader is a very, undetermined term, because Gregory is somebody who is more like a figurehead who, while the group admits has been responsible for getting a lot of things going, under pressure, he doesn't really handle things very well, as well as the fact that he's very self-obsessed. He's very controlling. When the group first introduces themselves, Gregory, barely lets them talk. He keeps interrupting Rick, telling them, hey, you guys might want to get washed up. It's hard to keep this place, clean. He likes to make himself known. Whenever he's in a room. He's that guy who always tries to fluff himself up, in my opinion. And Maggie is sent in to try to talk with Gregory to see if they can work out some kind of a trade. They realize that both communities could use various supplies, but Gregory really dismisses her. He doesn't really respect her, doesn't really respect the position that Alexandria is trying to give them. Gregory says, hey, we got a lot of food, I can feed these people and they're happy, and hey, we're doing just fine with the arrangements that we have. You have nothing, Maggie. Well, Natalie, as he keeps calling her. That was from the comic books, I believe, but that was a pretty humorous scene. And really, he really ends up, putting her down, and really, knocking her down a peg in a sense, because Gregory really is somebody who can really manipulate the situation, and really, put things into context. Whether he's right or wrong all the time is hard to say, but, at that point, he had shut Maggie's negotiations down. There was really no talking to him. Because that's just, who Gregory is. He's not somebody that's easy to get a hold of, in a sense. You can't really control him because of the demeanor that he portrays. Well, things get a little bit worse for the Hilltop. 3 people come back, one of them being a person named Ethan. And basically, we find out a little bit more about the Hilltop and some of the things that are going on there, because Ethan comes in and lets Gregory know that two of their members, Tim and Marcia, have been killed by Negan's group, and asks about whether the shipment was on time. So we find out a little bit more about the saviors in this episode, as well as what the Hilltop is doing for them. And basically, they are holding Craig, who is Ethan's brother. The saviors are holding him hostage. And the only way that they will let him go is if Ethan kills Gregory. So Ethan stabs Gregory in the stomach, which leads to a confrontation with Rick and the rest of the group. Rick basically attacks Ethan. Ethan continues to try to, complete his mission because that's his brother. And he has Rick on the ground, knife to his throat, ready to, kill Rick. And basically Michonne distracts him enough, and Rick is able to stab Ethan in the throat. Very bloody, gruesome scene. And Rick gets up, and this is just iconic. Rick gets up, starts looking at everybody. Everybody's looking at him. He goes, "What?" I was like, what in the world? I mean, it was just crazy. Rick kind of looks around like, what are y'all doing? I just killed a guy. I mean, what's the big deal? Like, well, Rick, that was somebody in their group. I mean, yeah, I know the guy was a coward and the guy was, trying to kill you, but, I thought Rick's reaction was very, very, funny, in that moment. And you see Michonne actually coming to Rick's rescue. She beats the one girl to the ground who basically, after Rick kills Ethan, this girl walks up and punches Rick right in the face, and Michonne, puts her on the ground, kind of seeing the two of them sticking up for each other. So it was a very, complex scene, and you have aggressions going on both sides. The Hilltop people are, holding their weapons on Rick, and Rick is kind of like holding his weapon on them, trying to figure out what's going on. Jesus is able to diffuse the situation. He walks up and basically says, folks, I understand what happened here was terrible, but let's not forget what Ethan just tried to do. I mean, Ethan tried to kill Gregory and then tried to kill Rick. So, I mean, he's able to really see the big picture and is able to, prevent anything worse from happening. So they go inside and they try to figure out, what's going on? Why exactly did this guy Ethan attack? And who is Negan? And they explain. Negan and the Saviors are a group that basically, they come around and they demand things from the Hilltop, like their food and other supplies. And they first came to the walls, and it turns out that Negan killed a young man, a 16-year-old boy, when he came there to prove his point. Because we keep hearing about this theme of, well, normally we kill one of you to show how serious we are, and he did that at the Hilltop. And Gregory made the deal to give half of the supplies, and in exchange, the Saviors wouldn't, come in and kill them and take everything they had. And you see just how terrible this situation is. And Rick and the group, compare stories about, Daryl running into the Saviors with Sasha and Abraham and killing them. And Rick's group thinks that they can handle it. Daryl says, well, hey, yeah, we met up with them a couple months ago. We totally blew them away. I mean, they're nothing. But there's a lot of things that they don't know about them. They don't know how many people are in this group. And we hear that there can be as many as 20 people at various times, but they don't really know the sheer force of Negan's group. But Rick's group, they said, hey, we fought threats before. We've won every time. And I'll tell you what, we'll make you a new deal. You give us half of your food supply. We'll kill Negan, his men and women, and we'll take Craig back. We'll defeat the enemy, get Craig back, and you guys trade with us. Maggie goes in to present the deal to Gregory, and the tables just turn. I mean, go Maggie. She was absolutely amazing. I'm so glad she knocked Gregory down a peg after the way that he treated her earlier. And she basically said, hey, you tried to, manipulate us and work things to your advantage. Well, now we see exactly where our advantage is at. We're better equipped. We have better weapons. We have more fighters. There's a sizable amount of people at the hilltop. I don't know exactly how many, but as Jesus said, most of them are not fighters. So, the amount of people that are available to fight is not that many. So, she basically says, hey, with your situation, you're going to keep on giving and keep on giving, and Negan's going to demand more, and before you know it, you're going to be without anything. So, yeah, we're the ones with the advantage, and we're taking half now because of, your attitude earlier. So it was very, very amazing to see these interactions going on. And in exchange, as well, Maggie also asks for Dr. Harlan to take a look at her, which he offered to do. But it turns out they have a sonogram, and they're able to get a picture of Maggie's baby inside the womb, which was very, very wonderful, very well done scene. And when the group is on their way back to the Alexandria at the end of the episode, they're all, in the RV looking at the picture, really believing about this, the world getting bigger, this next world, wondering what's in store for them. As well, Jesus goes back with Rick and the group, and another guy. I don't know if he was named yet, but he was one of the people that came back with Ethan. So they both go back with Rick's group so that they can plan for what they're going to do next against the Savior. So that's where the episode really left off. The other big thing that was really going on in the episode was Abraham. We saw that Abraham and Sasha were talking with each other, and we see that, the two of them, they were kind of joking around a little bit, maybe flirting. I don't know if you can call it that, but it looks like they're not together because Sasha, as in the preview, told Abraham that Eugene was taking over the route that she would normally go on with him. And, it turns out that Abraham is still with Rosita. So if I had to make my best guess, in those 2 months, kind of like how in the comics, either he's just been seeing Rosita and he hasn't seen Sasha at all, or maybe he tried to see both at the same time. Rosita doesn't know, but Sasha, knows what's going on and basically cut it off. We may find out more about what's going on, but at this point, Abraham is still having relations with Rosita. And a lot of the concern about him in the story was really him expressing these ideas of, could he actually settle down with someone and have a family of his own again? Because in the episode, he was with Rosita physically. The two of them were talking romantically. She made him a necklace out of a broken brake light from a car. And as they're on their way to the hilltop for the first time, Abraham, I tell you, Abraham makes me, at this point, I'm not going to be able to make pancakes again without thinking about what he was talking about. He totally ruined my idea of making pancakes, because to reference physical relations and making babies, he said, hey, Glenn, whenever you're pouring the Bisquick, are you thinking about making pancakes? So he slides that reference in there, and it was pretty humorous. I always love Abraham's little catchphrases and his, nuances, and I think it was very interesting to see him interact. And, he was questioning Glenn and Maggie's, getting pregnant. He said, why in the world would you do something like that with the way the world is? And Glenn says, well, we're trying to build a world of our own. And it is for the future. They are trying to build something. And Abraham, I think, he's still conflicted. I think that it's something that he's always had a problem with ever since he lost his own family. This idea of where is the world going to go, and where is my place in it, and what exactly am I going to do as a result of that? Because we see him continuing to be reckless. In this episode, when the group is saving the Hilltop members, he almost kills the guy that he was saving, Freddy. Now, Freddy, of course, came out of the corridor in the dark, but nonetheless, Abraham reacted quickly and almost stabbed him. And then when they get to the hilltop, and whenever they have that confrontation with Ethan, this one guy tackled him and started to strangle him, and, Abraham just, let him and was like, seeming like to enjoy the moment. And it's definitely very concerning. You really do have to wonder what is going to happen with his character, and where is he going to go. And I do have very big concerns about his character as we go forward, and I'm going to do a video on that, talking about it a little more in depth. But this episode really makes me convinced a little more that Abraham may come to a violent end, either in this season or maybe even season 7. But his actions are definitely continuing to be reckless, and I do get concerned about him as a character. But we'll have to wait and see. Next week should be interesting. Again, this was a great episode, and I cannot wait for next week. This season definitely getting better as time goes on. With that, I'm going to bring this video to a close. I want to thank all of you for watching. If you have any questions or comments, don't be afraid to leave them. Feel free to subscribe. I do have more videos coming. And if you have any suggestions for future videos that you would like to see, don't be afraid to suggest them. Have a very wonderful evening, and thank you very much for watching.